spent some time in Puerto Rico,
Mhm.
and I'm so curious to understand what your experience like there was as an Indian in sort of a predominantly brown environment.
Yeah. So I think Indian kids grow up in America and, they, you know, not to be kind of cliche about it, but you're Indian at home and you're American at school.
Yeah.
And for us, Puerto Rico just threw all of that out the window, and it became a third culture that we immersed ourselves in. And there were so many elements that are similar to India in that culture I'm describing of, can I drop my kid off? Great. That's like so easy,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
a very informal culture.
Sure.
People would just stop by, and that had never happened when we lived in Long Island, where a neighbor just like pops over and hangs out, right? Like just without kind of premeditating that action.
Yeah. And how old were you when you were there?
It was between the ages of 8 and 12.
Okay. Wow. So really, really just, formative years.
Yeah, and great for learning a language. And that was another piece of it. So we spoke Assamese at home, obviously English at school. In Puerto Rico, there was Spanish and English at school, Assamese at home, but my parents were also, they had Spanish tutors because they wanted to at least learn the basics of the language. And so there was something about seeing my parents learning that I think was a big shift for me, because until then, as you might imagine as a kid, everything your parents do is wrong. They don't know they don't know what a bake sale is. They don't know how to dress for my spring concert. They just everything was, they just don't know, because the Indianness defined my parents as completely the Indianness defined my parents as completely different from everybody else. And there was something about them in Puerto Rico where I could see them trying to learn another culture, and it was a welcoming culture, right?
Yeah.
And that's to your point about racially, it was brown, and that's significant. And people would invite us to their parties, and God, they would throw huge parties. Like a kid turned 1 and you're like, oh my God, this is bigger than a wedding, or
it's an event
or something. Yeah. Everything was very big and extra and welcoming. And there was something about that was, I had never until that point really been in a culture like that, because I hadn't been raised in India. For my parents, it was like a return to where they came from in a pretty fundamental way. And I think that shifted. I think that was really significant for me, because so much of my work, both in journalism, my work, and then my own community, is truly intersectional, right? It examines these overlapping areas. There's an acknowledgement that we can be many things at once. It doesn't just have to be that hyphen that defines us. And if I hadn't gone through that at a formative age and seen my parents trying to be a part of something else that wasn't America, I mean, Puerto Rico's in America, but I mean, the kind of white American.
Right, the culture of it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have gravitated towards, finding these overlapping spaces as much as I have.
And I think they embracing this kind of intersection for them probably lent a great amount of licensure in that way for you to actually take that and zoom with it.